Political analyst Peter Mathews is a professor of political science at Cypress College, and he joins us now from Los Angeles. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here, Rosemary.
So once it's issued, if it is, how likely is it that this subpoena, approved by the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, will result in the Democrats getting a full, unredacted version of the Mueller report, particularly now that we learn the New York Times is reporting that members of Mueller's team say their findings were more damaging than the Attorney General revealed in his summary?
That New York Times report is a lot of fuel for the fire that they have to provide the unredacted report, because that's important for the Judiciary Committee to decide what was going on. And I think they'll give it. They'll have to give it up because that's required by law. It's a subpoena. That's a legal action which requires it. And that's the only way they're going to get the information. It's the bottom line. What did Mr. Mueller actually find out? Not something that was summarized in 4 pages by the Attorney General that was appointed by the President. That almost smacks of a cover-up unless the whole report is fully given to the Judiciary Committee and Congress. Now, they can decide what can be redacted for the public to see. But the Congress and the committee has to get the full report. Otherwise, it looks like a cover-up.
Right. We'll see what happens with that. Do want to turn to Donald Trump's tax returns now. And the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman, Richard Neal, has formally requested the release from the IRS of 6 years of President Trump's tax returns using a little-known IRS code. Will this strategy work? And will Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who oversees the IRS, comply?
Again, he'll have to do so because this code was brought in after the Teapot Dome scandal under President Harding, and it's very solid in terms of legal precedent. And you have to return, not only have they asked for Trump's tax returns, they've asked for 8 of his businesses as well, because they want to make sure that President Trump or his businesses were not in any way owing something to foreign entities, and they were not making decisions, especially the president, because he had private obligations. This goes back to Plato, the ancient philosopher, who said the people who are in power, the gold class, the ruling class, should not even own private property, leave alone maintain it and make profits out of it like President Trump's been doing. There's a conflict of interest inherently there, and that's why it has to be released. These tax returns have to be made available to the committee and to Congress so they can figure out if the president's under some kind of cloud or not when he makes decisions for the public. That conflict of interest has to be cleared up.
Right. Do the Democrats, though, run the risk of looking too political on this issue and perhaps overarching?
It depends how they present it. If they say that this is part of the law, it's part of the rule of law principle, that no one's above the law. In this case, all presidents have revealed their tax returns, all the modern ones, and therefore why should Mr. President Trump be an exception? Democrats have to do it in a very measured way. In that case, they won't seem to be overarching, but they'll be overreaching, but they'll seem to be carrying out the rule of law. I think that's how they should do it, in the right way.
All right, switching to the Democrats now, and former Vice President Joe Biden posted a video on Twitter Wednesday in the wake of accusations made against him regarding inappropriate touching from 4 women, and this is part of what he had to say.
Social norms have begun to change, they've shifted, and the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. And I get it. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it. And I'll be much more mindful. That's my responsibility, and I'll meet it. But I'll always believe governing, quite frankly, life for that matter, is about connecting with people. That won't change, but I will be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
So will this, Biden's pledge to respect women's personal space, be enough to stave off criticism should he eventually declare his intention to run for the 2020 presidential election, which certainly looks like that's exactly what's going to happen?
He's been doing these things for years. It wasn't just overnight or a long time ago, and so it does become questionable, and I can imagine how women would feel about that, their personal space being violated, and by a man, who's definitely more dominant physically. And I think Vice President Biden's in a bad situation right now. He's trying his best to get out of it by saying, I acknowledge it. He didn't say I apologize, because maybe he did, but he said, I acknowledge it, I'm addressing it. I'm not sure it'll be enough for many, many people, especially younger women, and we'll have to see how that goes. We'll just have to wait and see.
You think that will be enough to rule him out in this instance, then?
Rosemary, I never say never in politics. Anything can happen overnight, and something like this could actually weaken him enough to where he may say, I'm just not going to run. It's possible. And then that'll change the whole equation for the Democratic nomination, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it certainly would. We'll be
depends.
watching to see what happens, but certainly from that video, that is an indication he seems to be moving forward on this. We'll watch. Peter Mathews, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rosemary. Good to be with you.
Well, in just a few hours, Ethiopia